This is the CJ Silas Show. She's been talking sports for over half her life. You'll hear big-name guests and all the hot topics. Her roller derby sisters call her Dodge Her Blue. CJ's proud of her California roots and time in New York. Born and raised in L.A., college at USC and Syracuse University. She's not afraid to share her opinions with you. And, like it or not, she wants to be the change. Ladies and gentlemen, all ears and no mask required. Here she is, CJ Silas.
Hey, welcome in live and direct from the ESPN Radio 1280 AM and FM 101.7 studios of The Ticket. I'm CJ Silas. I hope you had a delicious and family-filled holiday weekend, though I don't agree with what the holiday stands for and the history of it. I'm really glad you all got together with your family and you ate delicious food and you watched good football, mediocre football, and bad football, and you are now into December. We have a great month on the CJ Silas Show. It's a new month, which means we have a new contest. I actually gave September's winner their prize yesterday. I finally met them down in Pismo Beach somewhere and gave them their Kobe Bryant poster. Our October winner supposedly is coming in next week to pick up his winnings, and now it's December, and we want you to get involved. You go to Instagram. That'll give you a spot to figure out. I think you go on the contest winner's picture, and you make a comment, and you, right away, your name goes into the hopper. I don't know. I've got good news in L.A. and I've got bad news in L.A. I've got exciting USC football news, and Rodney Peete, former USC quarterback who does radio for 570 AM in Los Angeles. He played in the NFL for years. He was on TV. He's got an incredible foundation. He's a fantastic human. He's going to join us to talk about the insides of what went on in the Lincoln Riley signing, which happened really quickly. I mean, I believe that it was a 24-hour to 36-hour process, and here we are with a new quarterback for the USC Trojans. I'm happy about it, but I have a feeling, I have a strong feeling, I have an immensely strong feeling about hiring coaches during the season at really any level of sports, and I don't care, they need to recruit. I think that's a bunch of crap. And there are kids, not as much from USC, obviously, because they'd already had Dante Williams coaching for them since Clay Helton had been fired. But Oklahoma, and then the whole situation at Notre Dame, this, to me, needs to clearly illustrate change has to happen. You're literally the week of the championship games, and then bowl season, and then the 4-team playoffs in football. These coaches went into these young men's homes and told their parents they would love on them and be their kind of surrogate father, help them through their really some of the most tough years in a teenager's life is the transition from your house to college. Even though you're happy because you get to be on your own, is very difficult for all of us. And these coaches are going into the living rooms and telling these kids' families that they're going to be there. And the idea that they can leave before the season ends, to me, is one of the worst parts in sports, especially at the collegiate levels. In the NFL, MLB, NBA, it's a business. Guys are more grown up, we think. It's a professional level of sports. It's a professional atmosphere. But at the collegiate level, if you're one of the best football players in the country and you've chosen Oklahoma over Auburn or UCLA over Texas or BYU over Texas Tech or Arizona over whatever, and you've gone to the school and this coach has told you that they're going to be there. If something goes down on the offseason that you can't control, whether it's a coach leaves on their own or they get fired, I get it. But during the season, no. Sorry. I don't like it. I am as happy as I am as a USC alum to have Lincoln Riley as the next head coach. I don't think it's as severe as what happened at Notre Dame. But I think it's severe. It's severe for those kids in Oklahoma. USC doesn't have a chance to go to any bowl games with one more game, and I don't even think Lincoln Riley's going to be coaching that last game this weekend. I think Dante Williams will be. But there are things. I guess Bob Stoops went back to Oklahoma after retiring, and he's going to coach Oklahoma. There's something very wrong with this picture. Very, very wrong. We'll get to that a little bit more, hopefully with Rodney Peete when he joins us. Lyndsey D'Arcangelo, who wrote an incredible new book that just came out, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. She wrote it with Brittany De La Credas. And it really, I've been reading parts of it. I haven't finished it because I'm a slow reader, but Lindsay's going to join us on the show a little bit later. It's a history of a 20-ish year football league, really an NFL for women, NFLW or NWFL, and the history behind how serious it was to the women on the field, but also how it was started kind of as a gimmick. And it's a historical look back, and the interviews and the thought process between De La Creda and D'Arcangelo is just, it's really incredible. Both talented writers. D'Arcangelo writes about college basketball and the WNBA for Just Women's Sports and The Athletic. She's been on The Ringer, Deadspin, ESPN, ESPNW, Huffington Post. She's going to join us in a little bit. I think one other story that's kind of big deal. As a Dodger fan, it's been kind of a rough week with Corey Seager signing with the Rangers and Max Scherzer getting huge money. And an incredible, big, fat pile of money with the New York Mets. Huge amount of money. The Dodgers just couldn't do that. But to see those two guys who were kind of important on the Dodger team, it's, as a fan, it's sad. And I'm not going to say I'm not a fan because we've gone through that before. Tonight, at 11:59 p.m., I think it's Eastern, so it's sooner than later, the contract between the owners and Major League Baseball players is over. And the word on the street and on the radio and on TV and in print is that owners are going to lock the players out and they're going to have a little battle for a few months, which means there won't be much off season. But we've had quite a bit of off season over the past couple weeks. Millions and millions and millions of dollars spent by the owners leading up to this that might happen tonight, which when you make this much money, it's hard for those of us that don't make anything near it to get it. But from a business perspective, there needs to be more fairness in how much money the players make in comparison to how much money the owners make. And also the small market teams that don't have a ton of money, what are they getting? How are they going to get some of the big name players if they can't afford it? So things probably do have to shift. And I understand why this is going down. And better it be now than when the season starts or when spring training starts, February and March. It is the CJ Silas Show. You can subscribe to my show on Apple Podcasts. Search the CJ Silas Show. Click subscribe. iTunes, the TuneIn app, and now we're on Spotify. And I think Gabe says we're pretty close to being on Pandora. I also think we're pretty close to being on Wikipedia. Look out, because after all these years, still struggling to break through that barrier and get us out there. Oh, goodness gracious. Black History Month has turned into Black History Celebration on the CJ Silas Show. And a big news today, Josephine Baker, born June 3rd, 1906, has been entered into the Pantheon in Paris. She is the first black woman to receive one of the highest French honors. She was an American-born French entertainer. She was a French resistance agent and a civil rights activist. She was the first black woman to star in a major motion picture, the 1927 silent film Siren of the Tropics. Baker was celebrated by artists and intellectuals of the era who variously dubbed her the Black Venus, the Black Pearl, the Bronze Venus, and the Creole Goddess. Born in St. Louis, Missouri, she renounced her U.S. citizenship and became a French national after her marriage to French industrial. Hold on a second. She married French industrialist Jean Léon in 1937. She raised her children in France. She refused to perform for segregated audience in the United States and is noted for her contributions to the civil rights movement. Celebrating her today because yesterday she was entered into the Pantheon in Paris. A very, very big deal. Raheem Sterling, born December 8th, 1994, an English professional footballer, plays as a winger and attacking midfielder for Premier League club Manchester City and the England national team. On the 16th of December 2017, Sterling was attacked outside Manchester City's training ground by a man who used racial language towards him. And 4 days later, 29-year-old Carl Anderson, a convicted football hooligan, pleaded guilty to racially aggravated common assault, sentenced to 16 weeks in prison and fined. Raheem Sterling has been named one of the most influential Black Britons with his inclusion in the annual Power List in both the 2020 and 2021 editions. Sterling was appointed member of the Order of the British Empire in 2021. They honor humans and men and women for services to racial equality in sports. Raheem Sterling. Denzel Washington, born December 28th, 1954, known for his performances on the screen and stage. He's been described as an actor who reconfigured the concept of classic movie stardom. He has earned various awards, including 2 Academy Awards, 3 Golden Globe Awards, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and a Tony Award. Washington has served as the national spokesperson for Boys and Girls Clubs of America since 1993. In mid-2004, Denzel Washington visited Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam Houston, where he participated in a Purple Heart ceremony, presenting medals to 3 Army soldiers recovering from wounds they received while stationed in Iraq. This is what we do on the CJ Silas Show every week as we celebrate Black and brown people in the world of sports, entertainment, and the civil rights movement. I want to thank my partners, Jim Nazzo, Daniela Peete, and Larry Ackerman, dermatologist Dr. Brad Kurgis, the Slow Wellness Center, Avila Bay Athletic Club and Spa, Michael Moore Sports Recovery, and Joy Shell Beach, also California Fresh Markets, where we will be celebrating 10 years of a relationship with them next week. DJ Dutch will come in to talk about some of the specialties. He always comes in around the holiday season to share with us all of the specialties surrounding holiday meals and gifts, because some of the stores have a super cool gift section as well. We're waiting on Rodney Peete to join us. And what we'll do before that, while we wait, the Cal Poly Sports Update, which is brought to you by dentist Dr. Daniela Peete and Larry Ackerman. Women's basketball beat St. Thomas 63-51. They're 1-3. Maddie Vick had 10 points at 6-6. Then they played Montana State. They lost 67-55. She had a career-high 19 points in that one. And they host Nevada tomorrow at 11 a.m. and Denver on Saturday. Wrestling, number 15 in the nation, traveling to Las Vegas for the Invite this weekend. Volleyball, they won at UC Irvine 3-1. They out-hit the Anteaters 233-115. Next up, they swept the UC San Diego Tritons 3-0. They're 15-16 on the year, 13-7, finishing the season third in the Big West. Libero Peyton Duick was the Big West Defensive Player of the Week for the fourth time this year. She won honorable mention All Big West Conference. Tommy Stockham won first team All Conference as well. Cuesta College men basketball lost at Cabrillo. Next up, they are at a Grossmont tournament beginning on Friday. They're 2-4. Women's basketball, they host an invitational with West Hills, Lemoore, Hancock, and Taft this weekend. Hosting the 3C 2A Regional Wrestling Championships this weekend as well at Cuesta beginning on Friday. The Female Athlete of the Month for November, Julia Voss from cross country. The Male Athlete of the Month, Jacob Sill from water polo. Hancock College baseball this month having their holiday clinic the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of December It's for 6 to 13-year-olds. It's $100 per participant each day, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Just call Hancock College or go to athletics.hancockcollege.edu to find out more information. Hancock men's basketball lost to Cerritos 75-69. They are playing at West Hills this weekend. Women's soccer, Brianna Gauna is on the first team all-conference for the 3C2A, and she was also selected for the sophomore showcase coming up this Saturday. Men's soccer, Hosu Celio, also first team all-conference 3C2A, selected to the sophomore showcase also this coming weekend. That is happening for the men and the women at Mount Sac. Football at Allen Hancock College, 13 players made All-League. First team from the offense, Max Steinman, Maurice Smith, Christian Erickson, and Mike McCoy. Defensively, John Sniffen, Andrew Lauritsen, Ronald Fusilier, and Colton Thieker. That is a look at your Allen Hancock College, Cuesta College, and Cal Poly sports update. Coming up, Rodney Peete talking USC football head coach, the new head coach, Lincoln Riley. You're listening to the CJ Silas Show on ESPN Radio 1280 AM and FM 101.7, The Ticket.
The CJ Silas Show is back. Make sure your seats are in the upright and locked positions. Carry-on luggage stowed and opinions intact. Here she is, CJ Silas.
Welcome back to the CJ Silas Show. A little crazy in the CJ Silas Show studio, but here's the deal about this guy. I've known him since he was a college kid. I've known him when he was in the NFL. I knew him when he did TV. I know him now he does radio. I know him when he fell in love with his wife. I watched him have 4 children. I watched him create an incredible foundation with his wife called HollyRod, and it's incredible. We're going to talk about that. This is one of probably the best humans I've ever met on the planet, and he is a friend. He's a former NFLer, and he's an all-around good person. Rodney Peete joining the CJ Silas Show. Can you believe we've known each other this long?
Wow. Wow. What an intro. What an intro. Unbelievable.
Listen,
yes.
I know because you're an USC insider that this week has been a little crazy for you, not only because you're a radio host, so you're probably trying to get some people on your show, but then everybody wants to talk to you because you're really, you know everything about USC and have been involved since the day you got there. And so the fact that you're giving me time on the CJ Silas Show, I am honored and grateful, friend.
Well, listen, CJ, as you mentioned, we go back over 30 years.
Jeez.
Which is crazy, right?
It is.
Isn't it crazy?
It is crazy.
30 years.
And I saw
from the moment we checked into Fluor Tower.
Oh my gosh.
In 1984, I believe it was.
Freshman year.
Freshman year at USC. And we've been friends ever since.
It's so nuts.
It's amazing.
And it's also it's also a perfect time to have you on this week because yesterday was Giving Tuesday, which has been extended to today as well. And so I would like people to go to @HollyRod FDN for foundation and make a donation, especially to RJ's Place, which is one of Rodney's kids. So before we get to football, and we've talked about HollyRod on the show, but I think it's really important that we start with it because it's Giving Week and it's thankful time and it's the world is struggling. And I remember when you started this, I think it was like 1996, end of the 90s, right? And it's to help with medical, physical, and emotional support for families living with Parkinson's or autism. And you and Holly have been passionate about this for over 20 years. What was that conversation like when you and Holly sat down and decided to start this foundation?
Wow. Well, so, originally when we started it, and it was, you hit it right on. We started in 1996, and my father-in-law, going way back to him, Holly's dad was the original Gordon on Sesame Street. So he helped launch Sesame Street in the 60s and was a writer, producer for the show for a number of years. He went on to produce a number of other shows and worked on a lot of sitcoms and wrote some musicals and things of that nature. But in his later in his life, in 40s, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and it really took away all of his creativity, his motor skills, and Parkinson's can be a devastating disease to have. because it took a man that was brilliant and really lived by being behind the scenes and creating, and didn't allow him to do that anymore. So as he started to kind of suffer through the Parkinson's, it was really me, and I saw and I watched how Holly really took care of her dad and really spent the time and effort and money and really tried to improve his quality of life. And as we were doing that and taking him to services, we would, talk to families and see families that were struggling in that area and couldn't provide. They had to pick and choose between medicines that they could provide their loved ones and services they could provide their loved ones. So we were like, we're lucky enough and blessed enough to have the means to do this. We should start trying to raise money for some of these families that are struggling. So that's where it initiated with the Parkinson's and my father-in-law. And then, 2 years after that, our son was born, and then in 2000, he was diagnosed with autism. And CJ, at that time, we didn't really know a whole lot about autism and what it was. It was lumped into, every other childhood developmental disorder that you could think of, and it wasn't specified. But so, it became a challenge because he became nonverbal in those years that he was 5 and 6 years old, and he was spiraling in a downward way. And we weren't, we were just kind of struggling to figure out what we're going to do. And we had already had the foundation set up, but we were, again, able to, pull him out of mainstream schools and get him the therapies that he needed and help, get him diagnosed the right way and get him to the teachers and therapists that helped him become the person that he is now. And so we doubled our efforts and decided that we're going to also help families that are dealing with autism. And, long story short, he has thrived because we've been able to provide the services for him. And that's what we wanted to do for other families that can't afford it, that don't know where to go, don't know how to navigate this. And RJ has been so great because he has, become, I wouldn't say a poster child, but he has not shied away from who he is and is able to speak about it and talk about it in a way that inspires other people. And that's the most beautiful thing about him, is that he is willing to share his story. And we look up now, and CJ, you know this because you know us, but we look up now and he's 24 years old and has a job and has been working for the Dodgers for the last 6 years. And it changed his life, and he's thriving now, and his self-esteem is through the roof, only because he's been able to get those opportunities that we were fortunate enough to provide him. And so we just wanted other families and other people to be able to have similar success. So that's why we started it and continue to do work for it.
Gosh, it's got to be one of those rewards that you get, not just seeing him do amazing. And by the way, that he's 24 years old really freaks me out. The fact that we're so old that you have a 24-year-old, that really freaks me out. I know that those numbers are there, but I still don't want to admit it. You wrote a book about it, Not My Boy, A Father and Son, and One Family's Journey with Autism. So it's part of your life. It's something that you've had to sit with. You talked about your journey and your struggles in that book. It was such a beautiful book, and now that he's thriving, and I saw his little video that he did yesterday for Giving Tuesday. It's so cool. So I wanted to start with that, because knowing you so long, and you're so successful in the NFL. You were drafted like 20 times in Major League Baseball. You're a Hall of Famer at USC. Your accolades. But the best thing about you, and I can say this because I've known you that long, is the man you've become for your wife and your family. And that is something that is so nice to see with men, because we have to, we don't have a ton of men out there in the world that we can say that about, and it's getting better. But someone in their 50s that's really made it work and is such a good representation of humans. I'm just proud to know you, buddy. I'm just saying.
Well, listen, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. And look, we all grow, and we all grow in different ways, and you have to, everybody's got to find their own path. And I'm not sitting here, and you know me long enough to know that, I'm not perfect. I have my share of mistakes and faults and all those kind of things. And the thing got to find the right person that helped me grow along the way. And it's rewarding. And, you ran down some of the things that I did, but the rewarding part is that I do have 4 beautiful kids that are all individuals in their own right, doing their own thing, and I'm very proud of them. I mean, you look up, and especially in the last couple of years, as the world has been dealing with some really tough issues and tough things going on with not only the pandemic but social issues and things of that nature, that to try to keep your kids grounded and focused and out of trouble. That's a tough thing, because we see it so often, and I see it with a lot of friends that I have that's not always the case, and we're so blessed that our kids are doing their own thing and are focused and still know right from wrong and make relatively good choices for the most part.
Amen to that, brother. He played for the Cowboys, Eagles, Detroit, Oakland, Washington football team, and the Panthers. You can hear him on AM 570 Monday through Friday from 12 to 3 on Rogan and Rodney. I listen to him because I go, hey, Alexa, play AM 570. It was so fun. I didn't know that I could get you, and now I get to listen to you all the time. It's pretty fun. And let's talk some football now, Rodney Peete, because this is, for anybody that went to USC, whether you played a sport or you didn't, the past 3 days have been super exciting after 10-plus years of mediocrity. Did you know anything behind the scenes before Sunday that this could be a reality, Lincoln Riley coming to be the Trojan head coach?
No, I didn't know. I went to the game on Saturday against BYU, and obviously, leading up to the time Lincoln Riley was hired and it was announced, you like I did, heard every single name in the book. I mean, everybody was talked about. We had coaches like Mike Tomlin get angry that he was even mentioned for a college job. So everybody was on the list, and I will say that they did an extensive search. They hired a firm to go out and search and analyze the different coaching possibilities. They talked to several former players. I was one of them, so I had many conversations with the firm that was hired to go out and seek a coach, and I talked to them on many occasions. I have had conversations with Mike Bone and Brandon Soros over there at USC in the athletic department. But they really kept it close to the vest. But I did go to the game against BYU, and I was sitting with some friends, some alums that were big boosters as well to the school. And our conversations were, that we were getting close to someone, and that Saturday was going to be a pivotal day, depending what happened at the end of Saturday. So, when those conversations start to happen, you start to narrow it down. So, okay, it's not going to be a pro guy, because we're looking at all these rival games. We're looking at, teams that may or may not go to the playoffs or conference championships games. And so that conversation started going, well, if this team gets eliminated, it's a pretty good chance that this guy's going to be there. So it wasn't until Saturday night that I kind of had a real good inkling that it could be one or two guys.
It's been rough. Let's be honest. It's been rough since Pete Carroll left in 2009. Yeah. As much as I respect the Lane Kiffins and then Ed Ogeron and Steve Sarkisian and Clay Helton and Dante Williams, this feels to me, every single friend of mine that went to USC, even if I haven't talked to them in a while, everybody started reaching out. All the Trojan family started saying, praise God, hallelujah. And I think it's a lot of pressure on this 38-year-old kid, but I also think he can handle it. Did you get to go yesterday at the Coliseum, or did you have your show? Have you met him yet? What's it been like, any interactions with Riley?
No, I did not get to go. I do know some friends that were there. But I do. He is coming on to our show on Friday, so I'll get a chance to have him on air. But yeah, I got the same thing, CJ. I got texts from first of all from all the Trojan folks out there in the world, not just here in LA, but all over the world that they got the news and were texting me. What do you think? This is great. This is great. This is great. I don't think I heard one call or text of anybody that was concerned about the hire. I think 100% of them, and I don't know about you, but 100% of them were, oh, this is fantastic. Oh, we're back. Oh, we're back. We're back. We're back.
Yeah.
And I think because, to your point, for the last 10 years, it has been mediocre, and it has been hard to watch. because we have not been in the conversation. Not that you got to win it every year, you got to win a national title, but at least you want to be in that conversation when you start the season, or midway or towards the end of the season. You want to have USC in the conversation to possibly win a national title, and we haven't been in that conversation for over 10 years. So that in itself was tough, and the last 10 years have been tough. But he brings a certain attitude, I think, and it's more than just bringing in a name. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you got to bring in a big name. It's got to have a big name," and that's fine. But you've got to have somebody that can get the job done more so than the name. And I think his proven track record at Oklahoma, how the players respond to him, he has proven it. And I think the fact that he wants to be here, he was willing to leave a great program like Oklahoma to come to USC. It's got to make Trojan fans feel good, because he was set there. He could have coached there for the next 20 years at Oklahoma and got paid a fortune to do it. But the fact that he wanted to come to USC, it's got to make you feel good.
For sure. He was selected by the Lions in the draft in 1989. He was drafted by the Blue Jays in 84, the Oakland A's in 88 and 89, and the Detroit Tigers in 1990. He chose football. He spent over 10 years in the NFL. Rodney Peete joining the CJ Silas Show. Okay, is this a fair question? I'm putting you on the spot. Who was your number one choice before this all went down? Who did you really want? Was there somebody? Can you answer that?
No, there really wasn't, to be honest with you. It really wasn't. I think that I was really about somebody that could bring some attitude back to USC. And no offense to Clay Helton, because he's a really nice guy and a nice man. But sometimes you don't want a nice guy being your head coach, because sometimes the team and the players take on the personality of the head coach. And I think the USC over the years did that, and we lost that edge, CJ. That physicality, that don't come in our house, or if you come up against us, you're going to be in a dogfight. We lost that over the years, and so I don't know if there was really one guy that I was said, "Oh, got to go get him." But when I did hear it was Lincoln Riley, I was excited about it.
Yeah. It's fun to watch any of the notable alums on social media the past few days. It's been super cool. You can find him on Instagram, Rodney Peete 9. You can also find the HollyRod Foundation. It's still Giving Tuesday, extended into today. And Parkinson's and autism, very difficult things to deal with for all families. And this HollyRod Foundation is a support system for all. HollyRod.org or at HollyRodFDN. Thank you for showing up for me. I know that I bug you sometimes, and I know that you love me for all my faults, and that I'm going to not stop until you show up on the show, and I appreciate that. Give everybody in the family my love. I hope you have an awesome holiday season, and I'll see you at the Coliseum next year, because there's a reason to come back now.
You got it. Anytime, CJ. You know I'm always here for you.
All right. Take care, buddy. Thanks. Happy New Year.
You got it. Happy New Year.
Bye. Rodney Peete, oh my gosh, so lucky. I mean, it's true. You don't know how many times. If I looked in my phone right now and told you how many times I text Rodney over the past, let me see, starting, right when it happened. So when did it break? Sunday afternoon sometimes? I started texting him Sunday, and I know he's one of the biggest names who's still in the media, who went to USC. I mean, there are guys that played before him. There are so many big names that went to USC. But because he's on the radio, because he's married to Holly Robinson, Pete, because of their foundation, because of the TV show Meet the Peets, I think it was on Hallmark, whatever, because he was on Best Damn, because he's a famous USC alum, I'm like, oh gosh, it's going to be really hard to get Rodney. So I'm going to have to start right away, and I'm going to have to push. I'm going to have to use the guilt. I think one day, maybe it was Tuesday morning, I wrote, "Don't big time me, dude." And then I think one time I just said, #Trojan proud. I really went for every way that I could, because there's nobody better to get on this show to talk about USC football unless we can get Lincoln Riley, which we can't. Who's the next best person? Rodney Peete. Guess who's next? Chris Hale. Guess who's next? Sean Salisbury. Well, next week, we're going to have one of them. Thank goodness for the Trojan family. Coming up, Lyndsey D'Arcangelo, Hail Mary. It's a historic look at the women's NFL. Yeah, there was a women's NFL for 20 years, and they got squashed. But we're going to talk about the history of that league. And if you don't get the show live on Wednesdays, you need to make an appointment to listen. But also, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's the CJ Silas Show on ESPN Radio 1280 AM and FM 101.7, The Ticket.
We're back with the CJ Silas Show on ESPN Radio 1280. Here's CJ.
Welcome back to the CJ Silas Show. This segment's brought to you by dentist Dr. Daniel Lapidus and Larry Ackerman, 543-7993. The best dentist in town, by the way. I go to the dentist in December, so I'm super excited. They've been practicing dentistry on the Central Coast for over 70 years. I love that they open at 8 o'clock because it makes it easy to get in and out before everybody else is there. And they're friendly, and they're knowledgeable, and they want everyone to wear their proper fitting mouth guard. They always say that to me because I play roller derby. So like, hey, make sure you wear your mouth guard. Okay, I'll wear my mouth guard, I promise. The book is called Hail Mary, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. It's co-authored by two people. Oh, whoa, she's not there. Whoa, we lost her. We better call her back. It's okay. We're fine. Lyndsey D'Arcangelo and Brittany De La Creta are co-authors, both prominent writers in sports. Brittany writes on sports, culture, and gender in the New York Times, Sports Illustrated, the Washington Post, and the Atlantic. D'Arcangelo covers the WNBA, women's college basketball. She's written for NBC Out, the Huffington Post, Teen Vogue, ESPNW, The Ringer, Deadspin, and do we have her? No, it has to be on studio. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, you got to recall her. It's live radio, ladies and gentlemen. I'm teaching my interns while we're on the air. Yeah, you got to call her from a studio line. And there's two studio lines. There's Studio 1 and Studio 2. You can do this. And we have a new intern in studio who's watching this train wreck happen, that's the good thing about radio. And I think that other people, like the Dan Patrick Show and the Jim Rome Show, they do talk about what's going on behind the scenes once in a while. We don't very often. But the thing is with those people, they've had staff for like 5, 10, 15 years that have been with them forever. And I have a revolving door of fabulousness with interns because kids go to Cal Poly. Sometimes they don't find me till they're a sophomore or they're a junior. And so I only get them. Like, they're only really supposed to work for me for 1 quarter. And then I'm like, no, you can't only give me 10 weeks. I want more time from you. And so I have this thing, and someone just asked me, there was a time when I only had one intern. I'm stalling, by the way. I had one intern and not a big fan, but I only had one. So I couldn't get rid of him because he was my only chance. And if I didn't have one intern, then I would have to do everything myself. Well, now I have like 7. I've got 3 new interns that are hanging out trying to figure out if they want to be a part of the show. And I think that it's amazing because you can live and learn. But sometimes on the CJ Silas Show, we live and we learn live on the radio. And so we are what do they say? We are efforting Lyndsey D'Arcangelo onto the CJ Silas Show with her book, Hail Mary, Rise and Fall of. What's really crazy is that the guy that started the women's NFL in 1967 thought it was going to be like the Globetrotters, that he was going to get women to come out and play football and have sexy outfits and blatantly demean and patronize and objectify women. But then the women that decided they were going to play in this women's football league were professional women that wanted to be badass NFL players. And that's why it's so incredible, the story. And it only lasted for like 20 years and only 19 cities. And the craziness about the whole thing is that if you look at what the women's NFL did and nobody talked about it, nobody knew about it, nobody talked about it, nobody promoted it. But if you look at women's sports now, women's basketball, women's soccer, you really have to give a little bit of credit to the women that broke through the barriers and were the pioneers. And these women were pioneers. And there were different standards for men and women in sports at the time. And they still kind of do, the different standards still exist. 2021, and we're still talking about the way that there's so much disparity between men's and women's sports. And that's why this story is so important for everybody. You don't have to be a football fan. You don't have to be pro-women, pro-men, whatever. It doesn't even matter. The history of sports, we owe it to the women that came before us, like I do, the women that came before me in sports radio. We owe it to women and people of color, people that were different, to tell their stories. And that's why I'm not done with the book, but I'm loving it, and I'm really glad it's my book because I'm marking it up. And I've got one of the authors on the air. My poor interns were struggling with the phone. Lyndsey, I'm so sorry. Lyndsey D'Arcangelo joining the CJ Silas Show. I'm glad to have you. Congratulations on this incredible book.
Thank you so much, and I am so glad to finally get to talk to you after all this time.
I know. We've been in the same Facebook group. It's called The Dragons. It's this private group of women that do cover sports, whether it's radio, TV, print, social media, promotion, agencies, ownership, and it's been this really cool thing. And then all of a sudden, one of my Dragon sisters had a book come out. I'm like, well, duh. And I mean, I literally ordered it, like, I don't know, went 4 or 5 months ago on the pre-order. And then I got an email, your book's on the way. I'm like, oh my gosh, my book's on the way. My book's on the way. I'm so excited. And so I started it this weekend, and I'm reading it really slow because there's so much good information. Congratulations. How has Hail Mary, the Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League been received in the first 3 weeks it's been out?
I mean, so far so good. We've gotten a lot of just positive reviews from readers and people in sports media, such as yourself, giving us feedback. It's still, it came out just a little. Actually, it'll be a month tomorrow.
Wow.
It's still relatively new in that process. But yeah, I mean, the reception seems to be good, and I think people, I know you mentioned this in your intro, but you don't have to be a football fan to appreciate what the story of the National Women's Football League and the players who played. There's a lot that you can get out of it, whether you're into sports or not.
Why is this piece of feminist, LGBT, sports, and the history of it all so important to our current culture in 2021?
Well, I think if you read the book, you can see a lot of parallels to where things were in the 70s when this league took flight, and to where things are now. And women's sports is still in that growing aspect, still trying to get a foothold. I mean, we're eons in some aspects where we were back then, but in other aspects, we're still fighting for relevance. So there's a lot of parallels.
I was looking at the ages of the women that played, 17-year-old to 40-plus-year-olds, and you did all the research. Mm-hmm. How did you find all these women?
Well, so a lot of our research came from old newspaper articles because, this league was never written about. So where we had to start was just researching old newspaper articles from the time that this league existed from when, researching gamers and our features about the team. And, some of them were far and few between, but we'd find them and then circle names and then look up names and then do some Facebook stalking and just try to reach out.
Yeah.
Because all these women, if you think about it, are in their mid-60s to early 70s. So, we had to sort of find ways to get in touch, and whether it was email or just cold calling. And luckily, we were able to track down a good amount of players who were just willing to talk and share their stories with us.
She's Lyndsey D'Arcangelo. Her co-writer is Brittany De La Creta. They wrote the book, and it just came out. It's such a good book. You can find it at bookshop.com. That's my favorite place. Hail Mary, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. Lyndsey writes for The Athletic, The Ringer, Deadspin, Huffington Post, ESPN. She covers women's basketball and the WNBA, and we're so lucky to have her on the CJ Silas Show. What stood out to me, I was listening to, I think, Brittany on an NPR station recently, and I was reading some of the reviews. And what was really cool about it, because I play roller derby, and I know what this is like. And straight women in the 70s and 80s learned to be around lesbians, which shaped their social politics, but also opened their minds and hearts to women that were different. And I haven't finished the book. How much did you touch on that in the book? Because that seems very prevalent.
Yeah, we definitely touch on that with the book, and not just with, coming from different points of view when it comes to sexuality, but also race and class. These women came from all different backgrounds. You had married women, you had single women, you had, teenagers, like you mentioned, who were like 17. You had 40-year-olds who were just, tired of just sitting at home or just going to work every day and wanting to do something different. And you had, white, black. There's a first-generation Chinese-American on one of the teams who just was an incredible voice for the league at the time. And it's just this group of women who all came together for one goal, and it's really kind of a beautiful thing that they were able to reach over these boundaries and connect with each other for the common goal of just playing football.
Why do you think it only succeeded for 20-ish years? Why didn't it keep going?
Yeah, so it started in 1974, and we kind of have it ending in 1988 when it sort of fell apart in the 80s. But I mean, it's the same reason why women's leagues are struggling today. You need investment, you need fans, you need marketing, you need promotion. All of these things come into play. And in the 70s, we say it sort of happened before their time because in Title IX it just happened. Women's sports were relatively new, and when this league took off, it just didn't have. It had the enthusiasm, but not all the things you need to make a league successful. You look at the NFL and the NBA and all the men's leagues, they took time, decades, for them to become the powerhouses that they are now. And there just weren't people ready to spend that kind of capital for a women's football league at the time.
How does this book add to the history of not just women's sports, but the NFL and the legacy of the NFL? Because I think it should.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talk about the players themselves. I mean, we think they should be recognized in the national, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because there's such a tie. At the time, you had a Detroit team, the Detroit Demons, who their uniforms were actually old Detroit Lions practice jerseys, and they were passed down from the years from team players passed down to other players as the time went on. And then you had the Dallas Bluebonnets, who played in the same stadium that the Dallas Cowboys played in. You had the LA Dandelions, who, at the time were with the LA Rams. So you have a lot of these ties, and also former football players, former NFL players had become coaches. There's a lot, and you can trace the women who are now in the NFL. You could trace their journey back to the NWFL. You have Kelly Brownson with the Cleveland Browns, who played in the semi-pro league called the Washington Divas, and she was able to gain that experience and to be as a football player herself, to become a coach. And that league, these semi-pro women's football leagues, exist now today because of the NWFL. So there's lots of ties. It's all connected.
It's amazing, and it is. You can get it anywhere you buy your books. I got it from, I think I got it from Bookshop. I'm pretty sure I did. It's Hail Mary, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. She is Lyndsey D'Arcangelo, one of the two authors. Thank you for writing this book. Thank you for taking the time and the energy to continue to move forward with all of us to a point where we can finally, maybe, before we're dead, have an even playing field. Thank you, Lyndsey.
Thank you, CJ. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Take care, and we're going to follow your career now. Now that I've got a book in my hand, I'm in the fan club.
All right. I appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Lyndsey D'Arcangelo, the book is called Let me start that again. The book is called Hail Mary, The Rise and Fall of the National Women's Football League. She co-wrote it with Brittany De La Creta. There is some incredible things. Some of the names of the teams, there are only 19 teams, less than 20 years. The Houston Hurricanes, the Detroit Demons, Toledo Troopers, the LA Dandelions. Yeah, that's women's sports history. And it's super interesting. It's just more history. We need to continue to celebrate everyone. And we're going to do that on the CJ Silas Show. More about the USC Trojans hiring Lincoln Riley next week, every week. It's at 5 o'clock. I'm out.
Thanks for listening to The CJ Silas Show. Find her podcast on thecjsilisshow.com. Follow her on all social media platforms, including her YouTube channel. Make an appointment to listen every Wednesday on ESPN Radio 1280 AM and FM 101.7. CJ out.